St. Thomas University Digital Journalism and New Media present.
Welcome to this year's first Basement Files. I am Morgan Bell.
And I'm Declan Ryan. Here are today's top stories.
Protests and campouts are on the rise as Clinic 554 is forced to close at the end of the month.
Several First Nations have no choice but to protect their right to fishing out of season as non-Indigenous fishermen fight back.
St. Thomas University's campus looks much different from previous years, and students are not sure how to feel about it. Clinic 554 is set to close at the end of the month. It happens to be New Brunswick's only private abortion clinic. Grace Hickey talks with an activist who's been camping out at the provincial legislature building.
Clinic 554 is the only clinic that offers its specialized set of services in Fredericton. This is a peaceful occupation, being really respectful. Thank you to Constable Buckley and everyone who stopped by on my night that I stayed over. So far I've only spent one night actually overnight, and I was really tired. I know I'm very privileged to be able to feel safe. I didn't actually remember that there were video cameras on the legislature, but you know, I felt very comfortable and safe, and I'm lucky to have felt as comfortable and safe.
Although Kathleen would much rather be sleeping in the comfort of her own home, she is determined to continue her campout until the clinic receives its necessary funding.
If we can get rid of 8420, then they will allow abortions outside of hospitals. It can and it will be done wherever it has to be done. It's a necessity thing, it's a cost thing. Hospitals are really expensive to run. Not only are hospitals really expensive to run, lights, janitorial staff, nursing staff, LPNs, doctors, the lights, the patients, everything. A hospital is so darn expensive.
Adam says this is a matter of the provincial government not trusting trained healthcare professionals with their own practices, as well as not trusting individuals to manage their health. Premier Higgs released a statement this past week saying that funding private healthcare in this situation is a slippery slope. He has instead suggested offering abortions at more hospitals as an alternative to funding Clinic 554. He claims that anyone who believes the province is violating the Canada Health Act can challenge the government's decision in court.
Kathleen is hopeful that her efforts today in occupying the New Brunswick legislature will lead to the reopening of Clinic 554. This is Grace Hickey reporting for STU Journalism.
During the pandemic, people found many ways to cope with being locked down. One such way was music. With all the options available to listeners, it can be hard to pick just one style. But as Aaron Sousa explains, some listeners tune to an unexpected format.
Here's news from RCA Victor.
Vinyl records. They are synonymous with Grandma's house, digging through thrift store finds, and jukeboxes at 50s-themed diners. But is the format as outdated as we think? According to a new report from the Recording Industry Association of America, record sales beat out CDs this year for the first time since the 1980s. Just by last year's standards, vinyl sales increased by 11%. Here at Backstreet Records in downtown Fredericton, vinyl sales are just as popular as always. Eric Hill is the store's manager, and he says increased record sales has meant changing their business model.
Starting 20 years ago, there was a kind of a leveling out of the formats where CDs were still the dominant one for the longest time, and then each year vinyl kind of gained stature. The move towards more streaming and digital downloads further reduced the number of people buying CDs to the point where now vinyl accounts for I'd say about 90% of our sales.
And for some audiophiles, records hold a strong sentimental value. Fourth-year STU student Leah Mitchell inherited her great-grandmother's records after she passed away. Despite never meeting her, Mitchell listens to the collection to understand what her great-grandmother was like.
It's almost like having a piece of them that lives on with you, and I think that's something that a lot of people don't really think about when they say, like music does tie us together.
As record sales continue to grow, more albums are finding their way into the hands of millennials and Gen Z. Mitchell says it could be due to those generations seeking sustainable options.
I find that we have not necessarily this like obsession, but like a fixation on um, veering away from fast fashion and getting towards sustainability.
Backstreet carries new and used records and will even offer advice on starting your own collection.
You're looking to spend usually between $800 and $1,200 to set up a stereo. The advantage there is, though, you'll have a $1,200 stereo that, if all the pieces were great to start with, will last you 20, 25 years versus having to buy the same $100 stereo every year for 25 years. You'll end up costing you less.
Aaron Sousa, STU Journalism, Fredericton.
With the universities switching to online this semester, campuses remain open. Hannah Rudderman went to St. Thomas University's campus to ask students how they feel about the social distancing measures put in place.
George Martin Hall at St. Thomas University is home to Meal Hall, classes, and the Great Hall, but this year, without Meal Hall, action in GMH is limited. Student Carly Dixon likes the ghost town the campus has become.
It's quiet, and it's easier to study because there's nothing really going on, but definitely miss out on a lot of the essential parts of being a university student.
Outside each building is a sign reminding students of the COVID-19 symptoms. James Dunn Hall is normally one of the busiest buildings on campus, but with Subway and Tim Hortons being closed, only few students find themselves working in GDH. One of those students is Victoria DeVoe.
So I think that St. Thomas has done a really good job at making sure that students still can have access to what they need, like GDH, the study hall, the gym, all while finding a good balance between social distancing, but also allowing for students to have access to these things.
Services like the gym are available for students to work out in a socially distanced manner. Arrows show what way you can go up the stairs and across the floor and what way you can't. The same goes for doorways. Some doors can only be entered through and some doors can only be exited through. There's hand sanitizer at all of the entrances and COVID-19 information sheets taped to the walls of the buildings.
As you can see, I have my mask on, and it's very important to wear your mask here on campus when you can't properly social distance. Make sure to wash your hands and stay home if you're feeling sick. This has been Hannah Rudderham for STU Journalism in Fredericton.
As public schools open their doors back up to students, many are still worried about the risk of COVID in the classroom. Yet as Jessica Sawyer found, there have been plenty of changes to combat the risk.
Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, public schools across the world have had to implement changes and rules within the buildings to ensure safety for all students. Kim Skilleter, grade 12 English teacher at Fredericton High School, says her students are managing.
Then when the students arrived, I think we were ready for it. And there might have been a feeling amongst some people that students wouldn't be ready to wear their face masks, that they might be kind of rebelling against that. But we have found that students are excellent, that I think it's gotten to the point where kind of the majority does it, so you look kind of funny if you don't.
The desks allow 1 meter between each per public health. Students wear masks when walking around the school but can take them off when they're at their desk, and students are required to sanitize their hands when they enter a classroom and wipe down the desks before they leave.
A lot of what COVID's brought to the school has been positive. So you've got like smaller class sizes. I have like 14, 15, 16 tops in my class. I have really clean environment. I have everybody wearing masks.
There are some downsides though. Half the students go one day and the rest go the next day, and Skilleter says she teaches the same lesson 6 times within 2 days.
Making sure everybody's caught up on sort of the lecture part of the class has been really exhausting. And today I confessed to my students, I'm like, okay, can someone tell me what slide we left off on? Because honestly, I've done this 6 times.
For elementary school, the changes affect the teachers and students differently. Dawn Lavoie, grade 3 teacher at Gibson Neal Memorial Elementary School.
We're told to try to form a relationship with our students early on because, they're strangers to us and we're strangers to them. And a lot of times when you're talking to a student, you may lean down and you want to get close, you want to whisper something to them because you don't want the students overhearing it because then, the child's upset. So you're trying to talk to them quietly. but you kind of have to keep that distance.
With 1 month into the school year, teachers are feeling safe and comfortable in their classrooms. For STU Journalism, this is Jessica Saunier.
People may be worried about the opening of public schools, but that is not stopping them from enjoying the fall season. Hunter Brothers Farm in Florenceville, Bristol, New Brunswick is open to the community for another year of fun and entertainment for all ages. There's an educational corn maze with trivia questionnaires, a tractor ride that leads to a you-pick pumpkin patch, many play structures, and a small petting zoo. The workers just ask all to stay within their bubble and follow the usual COVID-19 protocols. For more information, you can visit hunterbrothersfarm.ca.
New Brunswick's snap election went mostly without a hitch, albeit the pandemic shook up the usual voting process.
This past September, voters were lined up all over New Brunswick to cast their votes, yet there were no thrills for this election, no rallies or even meet and greets. Instead, this election had campaigns conducted almost entirely through social media and technology in the wake of the pandemic. Voters came out in droves to cast their ballot, albeit with proper distancing and safety measures such as masks, sanitizer, and face shields.
Blaine Higgs' formerly minority government took the majority and broke the province's streak of single-term governments. The Conservatives won 27 ridings in total, 2 more than the minimum of 25 ridings for a majority government. Yet for many New Brunswickers, this was their first election, one where the importance of physical distancing and safety couldn't be more important.
Students are not the only ones affected by COVID-19 this school year. Talking with a Ridgeview Middle School teacher, here's Summer Arsenault.
Public schools have made lots of changes due to COVID-19. The classrooms are arranged in class bubbles, meaning students stay in their homeroom the majority of the day.
As a teacher, I now go from class to teach, and that has been a bit of an adjustment. There are some exceptions. They are allowed to go to the gym for phys ed. They are also allowed to go to the art room and the tech room for exploratory classes. Teachers are encouraged to take students outside when possible.
Sanitization stations, arrows for direction, and signs to promote health safety have all been put into schools. The fountains have sensors to fill water bottles to avoid direct contact.
If a person who attends school or a member of their family has a compromised immune system and people maybe don't feel safe about attending school, they do have the option to stay at home and to continue their education. Their homeroom teacher it would be their responsibility to provide work to that student, usually sent through email or Teams platform.
The school day has also changed, lengthening an extra hour because of distancing guidelines during lunch hour. Although this school year is very different from other years, students and teachers are adjusting the best they can. This is Summer Arsenault reporting for St. Thomas Journalism.
After months of lockdown in Ecuador, kids living in a gated community are finally being allowed to go outside with their friends. Maintaining safety measures during play is essential to preventing sickness. Ariana Calvacci gives us a closer look on how one gated community has been impacted by COVID.
In Quito, Ecuador, a gated community had implemented security measures to prevent people from getting sick. Children had been deeply affected in how they experienced the world, and a variety of activities, such as cycling with implementations of the new normality.
These last months have been difficult. Keeping our family safe is our main priority. That's why we follow disinfection procedures for all the people that go inside.
Being locked up after 5 months made everyone anxious. Finally, after all the grieving and pain, kids get to reunite with their friends once again to play. Regardless of the joy of finally being outdoors, things are far from being the same.
It's hard to ride a bicycle while wearing a mask. I can barely breathe.
In each household of the gated community, grocery bags are left at the entrance and then submitted to the disinfection process.
My sister and I always help to clean the groceries. It makes the work easier. My mom always makes sure we're safe, and I'm always glad to help.
Many people in the community walk their dogs to relieve all the stress they feel after all these months of being inside. After walking them, both owner and dogs need to disinfect themselves before going inside the house. The owner needs to wash their hands and change clothes.
I'm excited to see my friends. It makes me happy.
Kids can enjoy many activities by playing outdoors instead of spending their time merged with electronic devices. Parents worried at first, but now they're glad they can finally have the freedom a kid needs to grow.
I'm sad because I want to hug my friends again.
Ecuadorians are fighting back and trying to live their lives once again. For STU Journalism, this is Ariana Calvachi.
After launching a First Nations-owned self-regulated lobster fishery, non-Indigenous fishermen retaliate. Protests broke out and are ongoing in Nova Scotia. Jessica Johnson has more on the story.
We're making it all worse.
The Saulniver Wharf in Nova Scotia became a place of hostility and confrontation between non-Indigenous and Indigenous fishermen last week when a local First Nation set out to lobster fish in St. Mary's Bay. When word got out, people gathered by the dozens on both sides to protest. Jeremy Speller of Gespegawagi First Nation was one of them. He describes the scene from the water.
As we're turning, I see the hundreds of the white fishermen boats, and it's like a surreal moment, right? You're like, wow, it looks like a militia. There's no other word for it. It looks like an army just waiting out there. When they met each other at the wharf, our people were met with violence, met with threats, met with racism.
Indigenous fishers say that their traps have been cut, damaged, and stolen by non-Indigenous fishermen in an effort to stop them. Despite the attempts, one Indigenous fisherwoman was able to locate her traps.
Even without a buoy, without an indicator to say, hey, there's traps down here, our people knew where the traps were in the ground, like on the bottom of the floor. So I thought it was beautiful how they were able to retrieve one of the traps.
Other tactics used by non-Indigenous fishermen include attacks on social media and gathering outside the homes of people who have allegedly bought the illegal lobster.
Despite genocide, despite being amongst the first to encounter colonization, we're still here, which is unbelievable. I'm optimistic that we do get to continue practicing our inherent right, and it has a precedent set for other Indigenous communities across Turtle Island. I think it could have a long-lasting impact if Canada and governments and these corporations and individuals are held accountable.
Disputes are ongoing, but Fisheries Minister Bernadette Jordan has agreed to meet with members of the Sabanagati First Nation this week.
We are committed to making sure that we implement the treaty rights that are guaranteed to the First Nations under the Marshall Decision. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For St. Thomas Journalism, this is Jessica Johnson.
The coronavirus has impacted many businesses over the past few months. Yet Amanda Anderson had no trouble keeping her business running this summer. Jamie Humphrey has more on this story.
COVID did not keep this Fredericton business down. Amanda Anderson, owner of Lipstick Landscaping, had her most successful summer yet. At the beginning of the season, a lot of people started canceling their jobs, so that was also stressful. I didn't know how the season was going to go, but surprisingly, it was the best season that we've ever had, so that was really great. Although it was their best season, they still had to deal with some challenges. Product was an issue this year, getting product. We had to travel a lot for it. Moncton, Hillsborough, almost close to Halifax, Grand Falls. We had to go a little bit everywhere. Anderson does the designs up in the winter. A lot of the designs had to be changed because of product shortage. Despite these issues, they made the best out of it all and had a successful season. Mark Atkins, from Toronto, got some work done at his cottage in Robertson's Point this summer.
Some industries have absolutely flourished and others have not. And I think she is only representative, even more representative, of people that wanted to take care of their home and what their backyard was like, and having the ability to have a nice place to sit outside when you weren't going to restaurants or you weren't traveling or you weren't going anywhere really outside of the maritime bubble.
Anderson and her team are experienced in flower bed installs, yard installs, hardscaping, lawn care, and much more. This has been Jamie Humphrey reporting for STU Journalism.
COVID-19 has made Harvest Jazz and Blues very different this year, but that has not stopped people from having a good time. Shannon Nickerson joined the crowd of the Venezuela 180 fundraiser as they enjoyed performances for a cause.
The nonprofit group Venezuela 180 hosted a variety of shows at the CAP on September 19th for Harvest 29.5. The group chose to use the $2,300 raised to fund the organization Nutriendo el Futuro, located in Caracas, Venezuela. They work to feed and nurture children that have been displaced by the ongoing humanitarian crisis in Venezuela. The event was free to enter, but donations were welcome. Jimmy Beltran, co-organizer of the show, hopes it helps to spread awareness.
One of the things that I want to share with especially Canadians here in Fredericton is don't take things for granted, right? The situation in Venezuela is so hard to explain in words because the amount of suffering that people are going through is incalculable.
Venezuela 180 was founded by former St. Thomas student Jimmy Beltran in 2017. Beltran organized the event with Sofia Zarone. The two are passionate about educating others on the tragic conditions Venezuelans are forced into.
People in Venezuela don't have access to personal hygiene items like toilet paper, tampons, basic medicine like insulin, and it's like absolutely ridiculous that people are dying day to day because they don't have access to basic things that humans need.
Acts included the Chill Teens, Duo Guajira, and Cesar Morales. The acts played from 12 to 4 p.m. Attendees gave their name and number at the door for safety and contact tracing. Throughout the day, food was offered to all attendees that had made donations. Duo Guajira opened with Latin-style cello music. Carmen Armao, one half of the duo, is from Venezuela.
Okay, so we are Duo Guajira. We live in Miramichi, but we are actually from Colombia. I am Natalia because I'm from Colombia, and this is Carmen Armao, she's from Venezuela.
Next was Cesar Morales, who wooed the crowd with witty commentary along with his guitar.
It's our hard times right now. I think we should be more considerate of others and try to help each other as much as you can.
Chill Teens ended the fundraiser with entrancing, mellow music that swept the crowd up in songs of love and loss.
That's all for this week's Basement Files. If you missed the newscast, find us on our website. For St. Thomas Journalism, I'm Declan Ryan.
And I'm Morgan Bell. Join us again in 2 weeks.